car in the world, but not the worst car in the world. It's kind of in between. You know, kind of has some give and take with it. But if it needs an engine, I'd say that's a great way to start off a project. All right, number 3 would be assess your skills and the skills of your friends and family in your resources. So do you have a bunch of guys in your group? I'm just kind of using 240s as an example, but do you have a group of friends that's really good at, you know, drifting, or they've worked on a lot of 240SXs? You've worked on 240SXs. You know guys on YouTube that make 240SX videos, so it makes it easy to follow along, and get recommendations and inspiration and stuff. Or are you trying to get like you know, a NASCAR V8 and stuff it in your mom's Toyota Camry? You know, like has it been done before? Do you have the resources to you know, and kind of information or knowledge, and I guess willingness to, you know, is that part of the project car thing that you want to do is actually learn? Because I feel like a project car isn't necessarily even about the car. Sometimes it's about having something to do and giving you something to look forward to, and like seeing progress, and, you know, having a reason to go to car meets and give you something to do on the weekend, and taking it to this race across the country. You know, like it's not necessarily almost even about the car in some instances. So yeah, assessing your resources. All right, number 4 would be access to tools and space. So you want to make sure that either you have the tools, or your friends have the tools, or your dad has the tools, or that within the budget of like the modifications and the car, that you could afford to go out and buy like a tool set or something like that. The other thing is space. Where are you going to work on it? Do you live in an apartment complex? Do you need to rent like a storage unit and work on it, you know, secretly, like in the dark, like at night, where nobody knows that you're working on it in there? You know, those are all things that you got to take into account. You know, if you are planning on doing an engine swap, do you have somebody with a truck, you know, with an engine hoist? Is there engines around you? You know, like does your grandpa know how to tune the carburetor, or can you ask your grandpa that knows how to tune the carburetor to tune the Hondata on your Civic or something like that? I don't know. We're getting into crazy stuff, but you know, resources definitely help, and I would recommend not necessarily going against the grain if it's your first project car, diving down something and trying to do something nobody's ever done before, because doing something that somebody's done before that's semi-complicated will teach you things, but you'll have help along the way, and that'll help you understand when you get to a more complicated project car down the road. All right, the next would be finding the right car, and I guess looking for it in the right places. So Craigslist is my go-to. eBay, forums, Facebook is now like a new crazy powerhouse in like the cheap project or parts buying thing. I don't know, Facebook's crazy, but I mean, you could search Facebook and it'll pull up all these groups and all kinds of stuff. So there's tons of resources. It almost sucks because there's so many places to look for project cars and vehicles in general, that you almost feel like you're never gonna, you can't get to the bottom of it, and you're always gonna miss out on something. But that's another thing, is kind of goes back into the budgeting. But I would almost recommend like an unfinished project car. Let's say you're buying like like an S2000 or something like that, and you're planning on doing like a turbo build, or a Civic. Let's say Civic. Civic's easier. You want to do a turbo build on a Civic, and you know right away, because it's not your daily driver, that you're planning on building the motor right away. So if you find a Civic that has like a rod knock or something like that, or something that's, let's say, already turboed, that has a rod knock, you're like, okay, cool, I was going to build a motor anyhow. So you get like this good price on this turbo Civic that, you know, needs the engine built, which isn't that big of a deal because you're planning on building it anyhow, and then you could build it and tune it to like your specifications and kind of bring it back up. The other thing is paint and body work. If you know, if you're willing to deal with you know, replacing a hood, radiator support, and fender and headlight, you know, and having, you know, the body shop down the street repainting like the front end for you, you know, that's also another great way to save money on a project car. You know, hail damaged cars, flood cars, you know, there's always things, but, you know, they're give and take, you know, depends on what you want to do. And if you're planning on gutting it and making it a complete race car, and you're going to get rid of the engine and tranny anyhow, there's no reason to buy an immaculate, you know, perfect running and driving car when you could get like somebody's shell or something like that. So that's definitely some, you know, good insight that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily think of it at the first place. All right, number 6 is can you resell it? Worst case scenario. So the other thing is I wouldn't necessarily go recommend, I don't know. Don't go and finance this project car that you want, or like you go buy an Evo but you want to change the paint color of it so you rattle can it. You know, don't do things like that. Don't go cutting crazy stuff out of it, devaluing it in certain ways. You know, like if let's say you buy a Lamborghini, it makes more sense to wrap the Lamborghini than it does to paint the Lamborghini, because painting a Lamborghini essentially like devalues it because you're taking away from its like original thing. But you know, that all goes back to defining the project car, and if you plan on if that's going to be the only project car you're ever going to have for your entire life. A good example of something like that would be like Toyota Supras. You know, there's this one on eBay recently that it's crazy. It's got this crazy, insane fiberglass body kit and all this molded stuff, and this crazy interior with subwoofers, and everything's painted and custom, and it's just the weirdest looking Supra you could ever see. But there's one dude that probably like absolutely loved that car to death, and that was like his dream, and he built it. But like now he